This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk with Matt Hatfield and Coach Ed Young on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Good Saturday morning, this final Saturday of February 2021. It's the 27th day of the month of February, and welcome to another installment of 757 Saturday Sports Talk, exclusively here in Hampton Roads and heard all across the state, the country, the globe, through our friends online, ESPN Radio 941.com. I am Matt Hatfield. We have Kyle Hightower, other side of the glass, keeping us afloat. You might hear from that guy to Coach Ed Young later on in the program whenever he decides to show up. No, he's a busy guy today. We'll actually hear from Ed. He'll actually be part of one of our interviews today, and also we'll talk about the beginning of high school football. Can you believe it, Kyle? It's the end of February. It was freezing cold yesterday. I know it wasn't like, in the teens, the 20s. And by the way, we made the 4-hour-plus trip to Ashburn, Virginia last week. Coach Young and I did to call the Stonebridge Green Run game on the NFHS network. When I got out of the car, I could feel the cold down to my bare feet. It was a different kind of cold up in Nova, as they call it, Northern Virginia, than down here. But I got a chance to go straight from basketball, Kyle, to calling some field hockey yesterday for the Big Ten Network. We had Big Ten Network Plus. Michigan State, the Spartans, take on Maryland as well as Rutgers, Indiana. I'll be doing it again tomorrow. Shameless plug for any of you field hockey fans out there. And we'll turn it back to a local element in just a bit when we go through our scoreboard. And then straight from the pitch, see, I got the term right, the pitch to the football field, the turf over there at the Virginia Beach Sportsplex. Chuck Thornton and the guys over there do a great job to get our kids a chance to play when the fields aren't the best. So there was a game last night, a big one with Princess Anne and Salem. Got a chance to call that on Facebook Live with Coach Darnell Moore, who's been on the show many a times, former state champion head football coach at Woodrow Wilson High in Portsmouth, and also won a region championship with Bayside in 2010. So straight from basketball to field hockey to football, we're trying to cover all the bases. And it's cold out there. Is it cold to you, or do you just feel like, stop whining, Hatfield?
Today's not too bad.
Not as bad as last night. And you know what? It's actually reasonable until you get that gust that comes in, that wind. When that wind comes in, it's like, oh, this is a different kind of chill in the air. I think they should have moved it to like the middle of March and go into the middle of May. That's just my personal opinion. But they don't care what I personally want. It's not about my personal needs and wants. Enough of my babble and all the minutia. Let's get to the real stuff and fire up the scoreboard, because high school football is back and we have scores to tell you about. And we also have a couple of state champions to tell you about in high school hoops around the area. One got a championship last night in private school hoops. We'll tell you about that in a bit. A couple public school teams won titles. Unfortunately for one of our teams in the area, Green Run had an 18-point lead in the first half and couldn't hold it, losing to Stonebridge last Saturday. So they couldn't make it back-to-back for them. But the Princess Anne girls, salute to them. They got another championship. That's 12 total for them, 8 in a row for Darnell Dozier. He's running out of fingers and toes for all his rings. And Theotis Porter, the Smithfield Packers did it, ladies and gents. Keith is still honky-tonking and partying, hopefully with the mask and a face shield, which, by the way, they're requiring us to wear, not just a mask, but a face shield for these football games. Being extra safe and cautious are the folks in the city of Chesapeake. I'll be over there today later for Indian River and Deep Creek. But let's begin with the high school football scores, and we might mix in a little bit of hoops and, dare I say, field hockey. Football action back in the 757 last night, and you're welcome to call us in if you want to chime in on any of the games you might have watched, be it the one on Facebook Live or the NFHS Network or any of the streams, YouTube, you name them, because pretty much nobody's going to these games in terms of spectators. Let's give you the scoreboard around Hampton Roads from last night's games, the final Friday of February action across the 757. And begin where the reigning Beach District champions Salem Sun Devils came in to take on the Princess Anne Cavaliers in a highly anticipated battle. Two teams that were ranked in the top 10 in the state in Class 5 by VirginiaPreps.com. Salem at number 6 in the state, PA at number 8. And it was a down-to-the-wire game. In fact, they waited so long, 36 days by my count, Kyle. Something like that, at least 400-plus days. They said, you know what? 48 minutes is not enough to decide a victor in this one. They went to overtime, extra fun, and in the OT, the Sun Devils block a Princess Anne field goal, and they win it on a touchdown run from 10 yards out by junior quarterback Saquon Miles. The Sun Devils, isn't it so typical, a team with the name Sun, wins it on a cloudy, rainy, chilly night in February. Salem prevails 12-6 over Princess Anne in overtime. 17 consecutive victories in the series for the Sun Devils, coached by Sean Wilson. They now have 14 straight wins over Beach District foes, dating back to 2018. Their last loss to a Beach District team. This could be a trivia question, folks, so put those listening ears and caps on. You might win a t-shirt or something one of these days when we get back to giving out prizes, and you can come to our studios to pick them up. Maybe I'll stop being cheap and I'll mail them to you. Last time Salem lost to a Beach District foe, October 20th of 2018, when Bayside beat them 23-20 in overtime. Salem gets it done. They hold that explosive Princess Anne team featuring UNC commit Tyshawn Chapman to just one touchdown, and the Sun Devils win it in spite of only 170 yards of offense. Isaiah Henderson, the Air Force commit, and Coastal Carolina commit Zamarion Harrell with 8 tackles apiece, combining for 6 stops behind the line of scrimmage. Salem 12, Princess Anne 6 in overtime. We mentioned the last loss for Salem in the Beach was back in 2018 to Bayside. How'd the Marlins do last night? Well, they won it 46-6 over First Colonial. John White's team taking their opener. Leon Griffin returns the opening kickoff. Strong running from Aaron Williams, and they don't look back. 46-6 over the Patriots of First Colonial High, and Bayside has been dominating that series as of late. In fact, Bayside has won, I believe at last count, 14 in a row over First Colonial, dating back to 2007. Bayside will be in action next week against the Cox Falcons. How did Bill Stachelski's crew do? Did Coach Young provide the jinx for last week's episode? I was wondering, Kyle, as remember, Kempsville snapped that 63-game losing streak in 2019 when they stunned Bayside. It was scoreless at the half. Could Kempsville break through here? No, it was all Cox in the second half as Dylan Howes of the Christopher Newport University committed quarterback and the crew rev up the offense. First season opening shutout for Cox since 2008 when they blanked Kempsville 36-0, and they shut out the Chiefs last night 24-0. They've now won 15 consecutive meetings in the series with Kempsville dating back to 2006. Lansdowne Tallwood, no score through 1 quarter, no score through 2 quarters. There wasn't any score through 3 quarters. Could we be headed for overtime? Not happening as Tommy Reamond's Eagles get it done with strong defense, and they score all 13 of their points in the 4th quarter to notch their 6th consecutive victory over Tallwood in the head-to-head series, the second in a row of the shutout variety. It was Lansdowne 13, Tallwood nothing in that Beach District tilt last night. And the Ocean Lakes Dolphins, playing at Kellam High School, got themselves a 70-yard touchdown run in the opening period from Carlton Winston, who's headed to Campbell. But the Knights would not be fazed by that as Jarrell Harrison had a defensive score. It was Kellam 7-6 after 1 period of play, but Landon Spell fires off a couple of touchdown passes before the half, including a 30-yard strike to Logan Eastray. And the Dolphins win. Even though they don't score a point in the second half, Joe Jones's team prevails by a count of 18-9 over the Kellam Knights. They have not lost on the field to Kellam, for those wondering, since 2006. Remember, they had to give back one of those wins due to a forfeit because of an ineligible player in 2009. So Ocean Lakes, technically 12 in a row in the series, but they haven't lost to them on the field since 2006. So the winners last night in the Beach, to recap: Salem, Ocean Lakes, Lansdowne, Bayside, and Cox. Eastern District action on Friday night in high school football at 757 Saturday Sports Talk. Brought to you by Larry King Law. If you're injured in an accident, call 757-INJURED for Larry King. The reigning Class 5 state champion Maury Commodores, under the direction of Doreen McCain, got it done over the Booker T. Washington Bookers 32-8. They were down 8-6 after Rodney Hammond's defensive touchdown, and then the Pitt signee had a 2-point conversion. It put Booker T in the lead 8-6, but from there it was all Maury. As our buddy Darryl says, Maury number 1, and they remain number 1 atop that Eastern District. They do have a big showdown coming up, though, with the team that's in action today. We'll tell you about that in a bit, though. Commodores 32, Bookers 8, as DeMonte Dunlap and Amarion Granger score a couple of touchdowns each in that one. Eric Gibson throwing for 141 yards and 2 touchdown passes for the Commodores, as Maury's defense limits Booker T to just 82 yards of offense from scrimmage. Other Eastern District game from Friday night, it was over at Norview High School in Norfolk, and the Churchland Truckers winning it with defense as Dontrell Leonard's crew prevails 6-0 over Norview. So Churchland gets the W there. More on that game later if you want to check it out from Reese Becker, our pal and correspondent for VirginiaPreps.com, and occasionally here on ESPN Radio 94.1, providing us some sound and some interviews and all kinds of material. A couple of games today going on in the Eastern District. You have the Battle of Portsmouth with the Woodrow Wilson Presidents By the way, last year Wilson will be named that school because they're going back to their old name of Manor in the summertime. Wilson will be in action against the IC Norcom Greyhounds. That's a game going on, not in Portsmouth, believe it or not, though, folks. It's going to be at Powhatan Field in Norfolk, and it's getting ready to kick off in 18 minutes. So we might give you some live updates here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk of the Presidents and the Greyhounds, should we get them before we sign off at 12 noon. And then following that game at 3:30, it'll be Granby taking on the defending Class 4 state champion Lake Taylor Titans, led by Hank Sawyer there at Powhatan Field, and that double dip going on today in Norfolk. Oh, by the way, colossal matchup next Friday. We know about the last couple of years. We talked about it on the old days of 757 at 6 in high school sports talk. Maury, Lake Taylor, they had 5,000 plus there a couple years ago. 5,000 plus in the last meeting when Maury broke through and won. Won't have that many fans there. You won't have pretty much anybody there as outside of media and officials and security. Maury, Lake Taylor at Lake Taylor coming up on Friday night at 7 o'clock, a must-see matchup between reigning state champs. And it's very important now because they're only taking 4 teams to the playoffs in all the divisions as opposed to 8. So every game even more meaningful in this abbreviated campaign where teams will get just 5 or 6 games on the docket. Southeastern District action from Friday night. Western Branch giving Coach Rashad Cook his first win, 21-7 over Hickory. Desmond Cook, his son, had a 30-yard touchdown run in that win for the Bruins, who even the record to 1-1 overall on the season. And Kyle Hightower is still celebrating because his Great Bridge Wildcats got it done on Monday night, 3-0 over Western Branch. How about that? The Wildcats. Do you know, Kyle, the last time Great Bridge had a season-opening shutout in football? Let's see if I can test your
I don't know. That
here.
score sounds like it's from the 80s, so I'm going to say the 80s.
3-0. Last time they had a season-opening shutout was 1990 when they blanked Salem. Yeah, you were close. You weren't too far off there. 3-0 on Monday night. Pitt Eitz, foreign exchange student from Germany, with the only points in that game with a field goal with 4.5 minutes to go. There you go. Your buddy Pitt Eitz. You want to get yourself a custom-made Pitt Eitz jersey? What's that?
Legatron.
That's a good one. Get yourself a custom-made Wildcats jersey that has EITZ on the back. Great Bridge, though. Tall task today, Kyle. I'm not sure you'll be celebrating because the Wildcats are in action against the Oscar Smith Tigers. And as you know, Oscar Smith...
They're going to take it 6-3.
They're going to take it 6-3? Don't give Oscar Smith any bulletin board material. They don't need it. Trust me. They're plenty good enough. You don't need to give them any bulletin board material for Chris Scott's Tigers. And they won't be coming out of the Tiger Cage today because that game is at Great Bridge High School. A couple more Chesapeake games to tell you about. Actually, one more. Deep Creek and Indian Rivers at 1 o'clock today. We'll have some updates for you on my Twitter feed at Hatfield Sports, and hopefully a review of that one on VirginiaPreps.com. Yeah, if you're wondering, Oscar Smith, they were pretty quiet in their season opener. They didn't do a whole lot in that opener when they beat Hickory 64-0. So, in case you're wondering out there, they're trying to find their way a little bit. The Tigers, who are trying to get back to the Class 6 state championship after losing a heartbreaker in 2019 to South County. A couple more scores, and then we'll move to basketball. And we'll even give you about some college basketball. As you heard earlier, if you're just tuning in, Old Dominion got W's in men's and women's hoops. Bay Rivers District, though, we don't want to forget about our buddy Doug Pereira, a.k.a. Blue Smoke, as our man Ed Young likes to call him, as they got the job done. Falcons of York High winning rather comfortably over Grafton, 41-6, in a good game for York's Jordan Lennon. We know about him being a first-team All-Region, second-team All-Tidewater performer with over a 4.0 GPA. He had a 74-yard touchdown run, an 11-yard touchdown run, 2-point conversion, even kicked some extra points. 35 points before halftime. It was all she wrote. York 41, Grafton 6. And New Kent pitching a shutout 23-0 over Jamestown. Peninsula District will get an action next week. Oh, by the way, private school game from last night. Kudos to Coach Steve Moninger and the Norfolk Academy Bulldogs. They got a W 21-0 over Catholic, and they get the job done there. As we transition into boys and girls basketball, not a good night for Catholic. They lost in the championship for boys and girls basketball. Unfortunately, Larry Bowman, our good pal, has been on the show before. His team had a great year. All 4 losses coming to St. Gertrude, including last night, 56-36 in the VISAA State Championship game, Division I. Kate Carlson had 15 points, 8 rebounds in the loss for the Crusaders of Catholic High. Couple more scores for your boys basketball. We mentioned Catholic came up short. Cape Henry closing out an undefeated season as they win it 58-48. Good job from Mark Hall's Dolphins. Christian Moore, Bryson Spell, Greg Melvin leading the way. This end, by the way, literally just a little while ago, we have been told, as I get a message sent to me right now, Oscar Smith's football game with Great Bridge has been canceled due to several players being on active quarantine. That's actually a message posted online from Ray Collins, the athletic director of Oscar Smith. So that game will not happen today. Kyle, your Wildcats will not take an L. They will stay 1-0, but we want to wish the best to both squads there, as it is a very trying time for everybody with the mitigation strategy to make sure the safety is of the utmost importance for the Wildcats and the Tigers there. So no game today for those wondering. This just coming in now with Oscar Smith and Great Bridge. Back to the basketball scoreboard. We mentioned Catholic girls falling to St. Gertrude. Cape Henry boys winning over Catholic in the championship of Division I boys, 58-48. An action that was not a championship game. Private school, though, Veritas beating Knoxville Christian 92-85 as Cam Kearney had 33 points to lead the way for Veritas. All right, moving right along. Oh, by the way, those field hockey scores, I know you were dying to hear them, Kyle. It was Rutgers over Indiana. Yeah, Mr. Magoo's Scarlet Knights. Rutgers, you. Rutgers 3, Indiana 0 over there at the Regional Training Center in Virginia Beach, part of our coverage on Big Ten Network Plus. And Maryland blanking Michigan State. Missy Meher, by the way, look her up, Kyle. She's a legend in field hockey. 7 national championships, more than 20 conference titles, one of the best to ever do it. Her team winning over the Spartans 2-0. And here's the local angle. Sam Zivna from Cox High School scoring a goal for Maryland in that victory. See, I brought it all back to the 757 on 757 Saturday Sports Talk. You never doubted I would, did you?
Never a doubt.
Never a doubt. Speaking of college hoops that happened right here in the 757, over there at Chartway Arena, the Old Dominion Monarchs, you heard it right here on ESPN Radio 94.1, jumped out to a 14-point halftime lead. Had to hold on, though, as Kalua Zikpe records his third double-double of the season, 14 points, 13 rebounds for Zikpe, and the Monarchs prevail 67-61 over Middle Tennessee. So if I'm looking at this right, Kyle, looking at ODU, since we go back to that early season loss they had, I should not say early season, early January loss, to Rice. Aroni, the San Francisco Tree, woo-woo. No, when they lost 69-59 to Rice back in January, they've gone loss, 2 wins, loss, 2 wins, loss, 2 wins. I'm not trying to jinx them for today, but I'm just looking at the trends here. Lost to Rice, beat Marshall, lost to Marshall, beat Charlotte twice, lost to UAB, beat Middle Tennessee. I'm just saying it's how it's lining up. If they are to win, though, their next game, which you'll hear on ESPN Radio 94.1 against the Blue Raiders of Middle Tennessee, it'll match their season-long win streak of 3 in a row, which they notched in January when they beat FIU and then won back-to-back over Florida Atlantic there in Norfolk. A couple more scores for you in Conference USA on the men's side. North Texas beating Marshall 77-65. UAB prevailing over the Roadrunners of UTSA 64-57. Florida Atlantic a winner over Southern Miss 69-60. And Louisiana Tech thumping Rice 101-57. That score really jumped out at me. So if you're looking at the Conference USA men's standings, Old Dominion right now is currently half a game back in Conference USA East of Western Kentucky, who's 15-5 overall, 8-2 in the league. ODU is 13-6 overall, 9-4 in the league. Certainly they've played 3 more conference games than Western Kentucky, which had a matchup earlier this week. It was relatively close for a while with Houston, the number 12 team in the country. 1-point game at halftime, and then Houston just blew the doors off them in the second half behind Quentin Grimes' 33 points. But so there's where the Monarchs stack up, and they'll have a couple of matchups at Western Kentucky in March to close out the regular season. But tonight, 7 o'clock with Middle Tennessee, and you can catch it all here with Ted Alexander and Dave Twardzik, the Hall of Famer, on ESPN Radio 94.1. And can't forget about the ladies of ODU as they turned in 50 second-half points to knock off the CUSA leading Middle Tennessee squad, 74-57 behind Asia Wayne's double-double and Amari Young's double-double, 14 and 14 for Young, points and rebounds. Wayne had 18 points, 10 rebounds. That is the 7th double-double of the year for Amari Young, 14th of her decorated career at ODU. So that will wrap up the scoreboard, as I think we hit most everything across the landscape here in Hampton Roads. And we'll open up the phone lines if you'd like to chime in at 757-687-9494. You can also find us on Twitter at 757 Sports Talk, or give us a call at 757-687-9494. We'll talk with Theotis Porter, head basketball coach of the state champion Smithfield Packers. I know Keith and his brethren are waiting with bated breath for that. And Andre Twine, head football coach of Deep Creek, will join us before the Hornets get it going with Indian River later today at 1 o'clock on your home for everything sports, whether it's local, high school, college, and pro. We have all the bases covered for you right here on ESPN Radio 94.1.
This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk with Matt Hatfield on ESPN Radio 94.1.
757 Saturday Sports Talk brought to you by Larry King Law. For injured in an accident, you call 757-INJURED for Larry King. Matt Hatfield here with you. Kyle Hightower in Mission Control, other side of the glass. We'll get back to some more high school football and even hoops talk, as Theotis Porter will join us in about 12, 15 minutes or so here on ESPN Radio 94.1 to recap the Packers' remarkable run to a state championship in Class 4. Taking down the Hanley Judges up in Winchester last weekend. 2 of 3 for our local teams last week in the VHSL State Basketball Championships, as they won and Princess Anne girls won. Green Run boys unfortunately could not hold the lead to cap a great year for them, as they were closing in on an undefeated season in a back-to-back quest. Princess Anne with 8 straight titles. Smithfield, its first ever in boys hoops. Before we get back to a couple scores, or a couple games, I should say, I forgot to mention that are going on today in high school football. And if you're just tuning in, that Oscar Smith Great Bridge game is off for today. You heard we'll have some college hoops tonight. We'll have Old Dominion in action against Middle Tennessee. We'll also have ACC hoops, Florida State, North Carolina, as the Seminoles looking more and more like the best team in the ACC. Virginia's in a funk right now, Kyle. They've lost 3 in a row. NC State tripped them up earlier this week, and Florida State really, I think, has put them in a daze ever since they knocked them off with M.J. Walker, Scotty Barnes, and that crew for Leonard Hamilton. UNC, they've beaten them the last 2 times, but all time it's 50-15 in favor of the Heels. A game that matters for UNC quite a bit, too, because they took that L to Marquette. Really, about a week ago or so, we were thinking UNC's probably in, Duke's out. Right now, Duke is moving up, as is Michigan State, one of the powers out of the Big Ten, getting that big win they had. Actually, a couple big wins for them over top 10 teams in the conference, most notably here recently Ohio State. But now if UNC takes this one, they could be on the bubble firmly again for Lunardi's watch here, as I think Florida State, not being in that initial top 16, really stuck in the crawl for them. They felt disrespected, and now they're kind of out to prove we were a Final Four caliber team a year ago, didn't get the tournament, and now we're not only going to be the best in the ACC, possibly win the ACC tournament, but we're going to be a real threat to go to a Final Four while everybody's throwing bouquets of flowers at the favorites, and rightfully so, Gonzaga, Baylor, and now Michigan.
Yeah, and, admittedly, I haven't kept up with college basketball too much this season. So over these next couple weeks, I'm obviously going to be paying attention because we're supposed to be having the tournament this year. So definitely going to be watching the conference tournaments and everything. But it seems, at least with your point with Florida State, it seems like that's kind of like their MO almost every year, is that they're like, they kind of come in the season under the radar because they're typically known as a football school. And I guess there's probably other institutions that are like that. But it's, for them, it always seems like, at the end of the season, they're a top 15 team almost like every year, it feels like. But like when you go into the season, you're never thinking, Florida State's going to be that team this year. And they've made a few runs in the tournament. Obviously, they haven't been to a Final Four in a long time, if they've ever been to one. But Leonard Hamilton almost always has a good team there.
He does, and I think this team can certainly have a lot of interchangeable parts. Even a young man who's not far from, they're not quite technically 757 territory, as we try to bring it back here to the 757 always. But nonetheless, they're actually technically 804. But Essex High School, Sadar Calhoun, he started there and then went to Blue Ridge, led them in scoring to the night as he filled in for Walker. But to your point on Florida State, I think the thing that's interesting about them is they can have those bursts where they look like the best team, or they can hit you with, if they're shooting great, I mean, look out. They're just absolutely dynamite. But they can lull you to sleep at times, too. Their lone Final Four trip, though, by the way, 1972. You got to go way back in the archive for that one.
They did make the Elite Eight a few years ago, 2018.
Did. They lost that. Oh, who'd they lose that to? Was it Gonzaga they lost the Elite Eight to?
I forget if that was the year they beat There was one. I think they played Gonzaga like back-to-back years in the tournament. One year they lost, one year they won.
They had a good run, though, that year, and I was kind of critical of Leonard Hamilton before that. But nonetheless, here the thing that also sticks out to me, but I think it's hurting them with some of the rankings, is they're 14-3, but they're 11-1 at home. So they've played a lot of their games at home. They don't have many of the road victories, neutral court wins, 3-2 on the road, and that's what's kind of killing them right now with their reputation of being on that 1 or 2 line. There might be 2 teams going from the Big Ten on the 1 line, which I thought we might get that with the Big 12, but a lot of the Big 12 teams are kind of beating up on each other. That
2018 tournament was Florida State beat Gonzaga in the Sweet 16.
Who they lose to in Elite Eight that year?
And then Elite Eight they lost to...
Was that South Carolina?
No, they lost to Michigan, who obviously went on to lose to Nova. That was the Sister Jean year.
That was Loyola Chicago. Yeah.
And UMBC. This Kansas State made the Elite Eight that year. By the way,
Loyola Chicago is a fun team this year. They're, I think, in the top 15 in the net rankings out of the MVC. Very, very strong squad this year. You know who else is playing great? And they haven't played a bunch of games? Colgate out of the Patriot. There's my what we got here. 3 weeks away from Selection Sunday. There's Matt Hatfield's little sleeper for your Colgate Patriot. You want to get your brackets situated there, Kyle? Make sure you circle Colgate.
Yeah,
You're a Crest guy, aren't you?
Well, I think Colgate, it's a bad taste in the mouth because I think Mike Houston's last year at JMU, they lost to Colgate in the first round in college football in the playoff.
You're wearing the James Madison Duke pride. By the way, best kept secret, at least in the world to me. So much is going on and I didn't realize this when I got home. My dad told me, being the JMU alum, I had no idea that they started football last weekend. Had no idea until he told me.
I hadn't really realized it until last Saturday. And then
Crazy.
I saw that they were supposed to be on. They turned it on. They were up like 49-0. I was like,
they
nice.
were. I heard they just absolutely dominated competition. The Dukes of JMU, as they just steamrolled Morehead State 52-0. They got one today. Is it Robert Morris they play today? I think at noon. I think that's right. I think they played the Colonials of Robert Morris. Memory serves me right. I think that's right. Something like that.
Yep, Robert Morris.
Okay, so there you have it. Phone lines are open here. A couple minutes. You want to hop in here at 757-687-9494. We got to study up for our brackets, which we'll be doing in a few weeks. And we'll also have the lovely, for some, not lovely at all for others, bracket lookalike challenge. We'll do that again. People commented so much on it last year that they hated it or loved it. So we're going to do it again just because we love the reaction to it. All right, a couple of games I left out. You have in the Bay Rivers today on the public school side of things for football, the Lafayette Rams, Lafayette High School, home to our own Richie Somerville, by the way. They are in action at 1 o'clock today, Bailey Field against the Tab Tigers. So Andy Lynn's team trying to get off to a good start there in that one. And then a private school game I missed earlier in the matchups we were talking about for today. Greenbrier Christian is in action. Their season opener for the Gators at the Swamp against the Virginia Episcopal Bishops. Gators will be in all gray for a 2 o'clock kick there with Greenbrier Christian and VES, Virginia Episcopal. So there you have it. Early update, 8 minutes to go first quarter. Norcom is at the Wilson 5-yard line, no score. And that one between the Greyhounds and the Presidents. So now I asked this before we go to break here, Kyle. I asked this going back to college hoops for a second. I know we're jumping all around from hoops to football back to hoops here. I asked this to David Teal on the show. If I gave you Gonzaga or the field, where you going? And he said the field. Understandably, he said 2 reasons. COVID one, Baylor the other. If I gave you Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan, and whoever else is the 1 seed. And I'm assuming those 3 are kind of locked into 1 seeds. I can't imagine any of them just faltering. If I gave you the 1 seeds or the field to win the national championship in hoops, would you take the 1 seeds or the field?
I would definitely take the 1 seeds. I think Gonzaga and Baylor just seem to be head and shoulders above the rest at this point.
Really?
Right now, yeah.
Now, what about this one? Here's another one for all these people that are pulling out their FanDuel apps and they're getting all excited about these plays. Would you take all 4 1 seeds getting to the Final Four?
No, I think one of them could, mess up, flub up.
Well, particularly since we don't really know who that 4th one's going to be. There's a lot of teams kind of in that discussion right now. You might have Houston, make claim to it. You could see if one of these teams like Ohio State, Illinois, Iowa from the Big Ten win the Big Ten tournament. And I'm not totally counting out Villanova. They're 15-3. Fortune 500 company. I always say Jay Wright. He's so well dressed. He's got all those guards all the time. He sends guys to the NBA. He doesn't have maybe the, you say glamour. The guy's always well dressed, but doesn't have the glamour of the Kentucky, Kansas. Some of them. I think they're right there in that conversation too. Alabama took a big hit. I don't see anybody from the SEC getting that 1 seed. Arkansas beating them earlier in the week, but and I still don't think the ACC. Even if Florida State was to run the table from here, I just don't think they've done quite enough body of work. I think they should certainly be a 2 seed. But that last 1 seed is still kind of up in the air right now for college hoops. So you would not take all 4 1 seeds, but you would take one of them to win the title. You can't see someone coming out of nowhere on a 2, 3, 4 line and getting the championship.
Not this year, but you never know. We saw with the NBA bubble, some teams get, like the Heat made the finals, and no one really thought that they would be there. I think the bubble could be, a different thing. People just get in a groove, and you're playing at the same place all the time. So, I don't know. You're not going to like other random courts, and you don't have to travel and all that stuff. So you can kind of just get in a zone.
Fair enough. All right, we'll take a timeout and come back with some state championship talk with the head man of the Smithfield Packers. That's Theotis Porter. It's coming your way on 757 Saturday Sports Talk, brought to you by Larry King Law, on your home for everything sports, ESPN Radio 94.1.
This is 757 Saturday Sports Talk with Matt Hatfield on ESPN Radio 94.1.
Back here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk, brought to you by Larry King Law. For injured or an accident, you call 757-INJURED for Larry King. Matt Hatfield here with you, and at this time we're joined by a special guest here on the program. He is the head basketball coach of the 2021 Class 4 state champion Smithfield Packers. What a run to the title they had. They had to beat Grafton twice in a span of 5 days, including in the regional championship and Region 4A. We know a number of schools opted out due to concerns with COVID. But Smithfield, they seized the moment and the opportunity. They then beat Eastern View in the state semifinals, 56-49. And last Saturday up in Winchester at undefeated John Hanley High School, they knocked off the 11-0 Judges of Hanley to cap a perfect season for them. 10 up, 10 down. Smithfield a winner in the state championship, 61-54. We salute and say hello, as well as congrats to Coach Theotis Porter, now on ESPN Radio 94.1. Does it feel like 7 days ago you guys completed the dream and brought Smithfield its first ever state championship, Coach?
Nah, man. It still feel like it just happened, man, to be honest with you, man. And good morning to you and good morning to everyone else, man. I like the intro, too, by the way. That was some classic material you just played.
Well, that's our man Kyle on the other side of the glass. A great job by him there. But listen, I saw some of the footage on the television side of things from you guys. You come back, you get a police escort, and people masked up, we will emphasize, and safely apart, clapping and supporting you guys and celebrating. Now, that had to be a really touching feeling that melted and warmed the heart.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It was a surreal moment. The kids, the coaching staff, they all enjoyed that a lot. I actually knew it was happening because, my AD coordinated that situation, as well as the sheriff department. And so I kind of knew, but they didn't. So they woke up to seeing the lights and they thought we were getting pulled over. But, I just told them, I said, man, this is part of, what happens when you reach the mountaintop, man. You get some of these perks that, a lot of people don't really get to see in their lifetime of playing basketball and coaching sometimes. So it was definitely a nice moment. I'm glad the kids were able to experience that. That they deserve it, man. That community deserves that.
And we'll get to some of your key contributors like the captains, Kelby Saunders and Rashad Tucker, as well as Corey Moyer, Tristan Baker, who had the great performance in the regional championship against Grafton, Troy Giles, and others for you. But if someone was to tell you or anybody, and this is by no means, your program had a great season a year ago. I think it was 22 regular season, had the 20 wins, 2 losses in the regular season a year ago, had that tough loss in the regional semifinals to Woodrow Wilson. But we got a lot of great basketball teams in Hampton Roads, Coach, on the boys' side. I mean, you look down a list of them from even in the Bay Rivers, Grafton's good, but you play, Kings Fork and Wilson and Menchville in Class 4, and you look at the likes of Green Run and Norview and others, and Maury in Class 5, and Lansdowne, Oscar Smith, Western Branch, Class 6, Kickinton on the PD. I mean, you go down the list of teams. If someone told you the only boys basketball state champion from Hampton Roads for 2020, 2021 would be the Smithfield Packers months ago while we were in COVID and didn't know if we'd have a season, what would your reaction have been?
It would definitely be a hard sell. I mean, I believe wholeheartedly in the program and the kids that I have and the staff. But at the same time, it's a ton of great programs in our region, man. And I've always felt, even back in the day, when it was just, 3A and, you had to survive that Eastern region gauntlet. I always felt that our region is one of the best regions in the state, if not the best, year in and year out. A lot of those teams that, you just mentioned, they definitely get some credit for the success that we did have this year because, while our record on paper says 10-0, we played much more than 10 games. Prior to knowing that we had a season, we played at Boo, we played at the new Sports Center, and we played against some of those teams you just named, and we won some and we lost some. But we learned a lot in that process about ourselves and things that we need to work on and get better at to be able to make this type of run that we made. So it would definitely be a hard sell if you had told me months ago that out of all of those teams, we would be the only one that stand at the end, especially, undefeated. It's definitely a lot to take in, but at the same time, man, we can only control the controllables. And, of course, I wish everybody had the opportunity that we had, but I can't control that. I can only focus on, what's going on at Smithfield High School.
A tribute to the hard work that you, your coaching staff, your players, and everyone there at Smithfield's put in to make this possible, abiding by all the COVID protocols and masking up and doing the right things. We're talking with Theotis Porter, head man of the Smithfield Packers, who capped a 10-0 perfect season by winning the state championship last Saturday, 61-54 on the road at John Hanley High School in Winchester. One of just two boys basketball teams, by the way, to win the state championship on the road, as four of them came up short that were on the road, two that won it at home, Hopewell in Class 3 and Smithfield in Class 4. It's 757 Saturday Sports Talk here on ESPN Radio 94.1. And I remember back in 2009, Coach, what a great team you were a part of as an assistant coach with the Kings Fork Bulldogs led by Jaquan Parker, Jamar Wirtz, Devontae Gardner, Jay Copeland, one of the best we've seen here in Hampton Roads in recent memory and in a long time. And you were on that staff with Coach Josh Worrell leading the way, and along with Coach Worrell, you and Clint Wright as assistants who became state champion coaches. Coach Wright winning a share of the Class 3 crown a year ago at Lakeland, you winning it this year in Class 4. I'm curious for you, the difference in state championships as an assistant and now leading your own program as a head coach, besides the obvious with COVID, is the big cloud over all of us.
That was definitely a unique experience. Definitely, I have extreme gratitude for Coach Worrell and Coach Clint as well. Those guys have always been in my corner, been mentors to me, even back then and, of course, now. I think the major difference in the two, aside from the obvious fact that I was assistant with the first group and then, being the head with the second, I think at Kings Fork, it was a relatively new school. I think we did it within 5 years of the school being built. So we didn't even have an alumni at that point, really, to be honest. We had one class that really graduated, from Kings Fork at the time. And, everybody else was just, kind of coming from Lakeland and Aspen and stuff. So it was different because it wasn't celebrated or appreciated in the same light because, the school's so new and people just still trying to figure out what our mascot is and where we are and the colors. It was a lot going on at that time, and we had an outstanding squad, and we ran through the gauntlet, of course, and came out 31-1 that year. But I think looking at this season right here, it's a little more appreciated because that program that I'm at now with Smithfield, it's 115 years and they've never ever experienced this. So. We talking grandmamas and granddaddies and great-grandmamas and, whole families that been through that school that never, ever seen anything like this. So it's much more gratifying for me to be able to lead them to that, plateau. I mean, of course, like I said, I know the COVID thing, kind of put a damper on the celebration side and things of that nature, but it's still something they'll never forget, and that they can, have pride and be proud of, being from Smithfield and people actually, saying their name and, playing their conversation when it comes to basketball now.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. In some ways, you can make arguments, on both sides. I think the accomplishments are fantastic, which is, harder, which is easier. Certainly different circumstances, longer season.
Mm-hmm.
You guys having to deal with the COVID protocols you didn't have to back then and so forth. But
Right.
one of the things that sticks out to me is really regular season, okay, you beat the likes of Franklin twice, Gloucester twice, Pocosin, Tabb, Grafton. You don't really see the daunting, tough challenge down the wire. You guys face some, an uptick in competition as you get to the playoffs, which is natural for all teams. What did you guys do to prepare for that, the different styles of play you saw in the postseason? And also you have got some very good players, well-knit group at Smithfield, but you don't have that dominant Division I talent that you might have had in those Kings Fork teams or,
Right.
A dominant player like you saw in the championship game in Dimitri Gardner for Hanley.
Right. And I think, again, I attribute a lot of that preparation to things that we done prior to really the season. Playing that boo, like I said, we played against the gauntlet pretty much, all the teams that, you mentioned earlier about not being able to play the Kickertans, the Bethels, Smithfield, Wilson. I mean, we played all those teams, man. So playing those teams definitely helped prepare us for the type of athleticism that Dimitri Gardner presented, the type of talent he has, the aggression that he played with. And then our district, the teams in our district and teams like them in the Northern Virginia area, those teams play a similar style, a slower pace, more disciplined brand of basketball when it comes to running zones and running sets. And I think, like I told the guys up there in Winchester when I was interviewed about it, I told them the same thing. I said, I feel we got to find balance because in our region, in our area, in the 757, in general, we play a much more aggressive, fast-paced, physical brand of basketball. But then when you look at the Bay River District, it's more strategy-based and it's more, zones and, having to know how to run a good zone offense and break zone presses and things of that nature. So we kind of get a fine balance of the two. And in preparation for the postseason for us, I mean, yeah, granted, we didn't play the traditional schedule against, the different talents and different teams as we normally would, of course. But the type of teams that we played, I think, kind of helped us. Gloucester was huge. I mean, like I said, some people look at Gloucester like Gloucester. But they had a very big team, man, and it definitely prepared us for the Eastern Views because that was the same type of team. They ran stuff very similar. They had very big kids in the inside, which, of course, we were mostly guard-based with our program. So it showed us how to attack them, things that could be effective, things that may not be effective. And then, like I said, as well as our practices definitely, I think, is what prepared us for the run that we went on at the end as far as the postseason because we changed the way we practiced a little bit and we made it a little bit more competition-based and, put some consequences on the line that kids didn't want to lose. So it kind of gave them that, dig up, out the hole and fight back and not quit type of mentality. And I think it paid dividends for us.
Talking with Theotis Porter, head basketball coach of the state champion Smithfield Packers, our guest here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk on ESPN Radio 94.1 as the Packers prevailed last weekend up in Winchester 61-54 over John Hanley to cap a state championship season. The defense are really stout all year long, holding many of the teams to 40 points or less, even I think giving up for the year maybe about 42, 43 points per game, doing an outstanding job, and I think that's where it all began with you, Coach. But not having fans there for a state championship coaching it, it's weird, and this is not meant in any way, shape, or form as a negative to the players and coaches because this is the hand you've been dealt here. But last week calling the Stonebridge Green Run game, it felt like at times not throughout the competition, the intense battle, but getting ready for it in a high school gym. It didn't feel like the state championship. It almost felt like a regular season type of game in that sense. Not having the people there, but they're watching virtually and playing in another team's gym. How'd you guys handle all of that? And tell us about the game a little bit, because a lot of people didn't get a chance to watch on the stream how the game went, because I heard you were down early, but you had a big second quarter run.
Yeah, it definitely was different, man, playing this year, to be honest. And I know a lot of teams can attest to this as well, because, it's still basketball being played. I mean, unfortunately, everyone wasn't able to, partake in the VHSL this year, but it's still basketball being played, and they still got the experience of playing in a quieter gym, less intense environment. For us, though, I think it was definitely difficult. We have a great following out of Smithfield, and as most people know from last year, coming to that regional semi, how packed that gym was. I mean, it would have been definitely that, if not more, this year, I think, had that situation arose. But I think one of the major things that I preached to my kids all year was we got to bring our own energy. We got to be our own fans. Our bench, we got to win the bench war, as I said to them a lot. We got to win the bench war. We got to have the most energy in the gym, and we got to play for each other. We don't have, like I said, cheerleaders at every game, and the DJs and all the stuff that we normally do. We didn't have those things, so we had to find ways to create energy and just kind of ride for each other, and it worked for us. And then like teams like Hanley and Grafton, who their bench did chants and all that kind of stuff, and it was dope to see. But like I told my guys, I said, you can't let them beat you in that aspect either. I said we got to win each phase of the game, and that's a new phase of the game, unfortunately, due to this COVID situation. But as far as hold on, I'm sorry, I forgot what you said for the.
No, yeah, the game. Give us a little bit of a mini synopsis of what happened, because I was just following along online. I haven't had a chance with all the football going on to sit down and kind of break it down like I do a lot of games yet. I will get some time to do that and watch it more in depth. But for those that haven't seen it, those are just tuning in now, they heard Smithfield won. Take us through, what won it for you. Was it defense first and foremost?
Well, it was mostly defense, yes. What basically happened in the game is the guys came out, typical, first time state tournament appearance or big stage game appearance. They came out nervous. Hanley did what they supposed to do. They're a much more seasoned team when it comes to that stage, and they playing in their own gym, so it's that comfort level that they had as well. They came out. They made a few shots early. My guys missed a few easy opportunities we had. I mean, point blank range stuff, and they jumped out on us pretty quick. And once we, took a timeout to try to, collect everybody's thoughts, get everybody to understand that it's still a basketball game. Yes, it's a big game. I understand that, but it's still a basketball game. So just calm down. Let's execute. Let's, finish our baskets and, put a little pressure on them, make them think about it a little bit. So once we settled down, I think they jumped out on us. I want to say it was like 9-2 or something like that, or 9-4. And then I think we closed the quarter and we were down, I want to say it was 4 at the end of the first. And then second quarter, they went up on us by about 12, I believe it was. And I wasn't panicking or didn't have a sense of panic because, again, we were playing our worst ball at that time. Guys still was nervous and hadn't really settled down quite yet. And I could see that they were really giving us their best shot, really, to be honest. And everything was going through Gardner. So I said, well, we're going to make an adjustment in the second half because you don't want to make adjustments too soon because, again, you give the coach time to identify what you're doing and he can coach the kids up and they can, go to different things. So I decided to hold on to my wild card and wait till the second half. And I said, we're in striking distance, we'll be fine. So we went in the half, down 7. I talked to the guys at halftime. A lot of people think, because of my mentality and my style that I went in and I cussed and fussed and all that, but I didn't actually. I actually went in. I remained calm because, again, in that situation, you don't want to show your guys that you're frustrated, you're mad, and get too emotional. Just because, again, you could tell that they were already nervous. You didn't want to add to that. So I had to come in more so with the calm side of me and just talk to those guys and, remind them of the situation and everything. And then we talked about the adjustment, which was basically to take the ball out of Gardner's hands, because I saw that everything they did went through him. And the other guys were just basically standing around watching him play. So I said, well, this half right here, we're going to take the ball out of his hands. We're going to make the other guys have to make some plays. And those guys weren't prepared to step up to that challenge. The other guys that wasn't responsible for Gardner, they did a great job closing out on the shooters, making the shooters put the ball on the floor, making the bigs have to do things that they're not accustomed to doing in their district, in their region. And once we was able to flip the scoreboard, I think Hanley kind of panicked and started taking some sporadic shots that they really, I don't think, wanted to take. And that allowed us to increase the lead. And once we got the lead up to 10, you could kind of see the panic setting in on Hanley and the pressure setting in on them. And the guys were able to bring it home from there.
Last two for you, and we appreciate the time talking with Theotis Porter, head basketball coach of the Smithfield Packers here on ESPN Radio 94.1. Give us sort of a mini rundown of some of those key guys, what they brought for you, whether it was Tucker, Saunders, Giles, Moye. I mean, it was a group that nobody was over 6'2", 6'3", didn't have that prodigious height, but they really buckled down and they played well together.
Yes, sir. I think for us, man, me and a few of the coaches that, in the area, we had some conversations leading up to the season, and we were just talking about, our teams in general, what we could do, what we can't do. And I remember some conversations with a few guys, and they was talking about, your guard play got to be, consistent, got to be able to handle the press and things of that nature. And I told them then, and it was very early in the process at the time, and I told them, I said, we'll be fine. I said, because we're going to have to handle back committee. I don't have a bona fide point guard, a bona fide 30-point scorer type player. I don't have one of those. But I do have several kids who can contribute for us to be successful. And if they buy into that system and that thought process, we'll be fine. And that's basically what happened. I had guys, like you said, I didn't have a huge team as far as height and, width and stuff like that. My tallest player was 6'4", I see at 6'4", I would say Kelby and Josh Condit. They were my two tallest players. Kelby played more than, Josh, of course, as our captain. He did a lot of the intangibles. He didn't have the great scoring season that he might have hoped for, but he affected the game in so many other ways. And he led our team, day in and day out. And the energy, the effort, the communication, just his leadership as a whole, he brought in a sense of belief and comfort for a lot of guys. And that kind of helped get us over the hump a lot of days. Again, he didn't have the output he would like on the offensive end, but he definitely had his hand and his thumbprint on every game. Rashad Tucker, he's a very underrated kid, man. It's amazing to see how him, as well as Corey Moy, it's amazing to see how those two kids have grown, man, and accepted their roles. They led us almost every game, whether it was scoring, rebounding, blocking shots. I mean, they're very athletic kids. Rashad being about 6'2", 6'3", Corey being about 6 foot, maybe 6'1" on a good day. But both of those kids are super athletic kids, man, and it's just amazing to see how they've grown and was able to basically put the team on their backs a lot of days and a lot of situations and get us tough buckets and tough stops and tough rebounds, things like that. And then you have, the Tristan Baker stepping up, hitting shots and making plays. Like I said, a lot of people look at that Grafton game and like, yo, he hit 5 threes and this, that, and the third. I'm like, yeah, that's great. But the stuff that you don't see and don't hear people talk about is him making hustle plays, running down plays, stripping people from behind, running past the lanes, getting tips, getting interceptions, A lot of those things played major parts for us, man. And then you have a young Troy Giles and a young Marquise Custis. Troy, he's going to be a kid that you guys are going to talk about a lot, man. That kid works extremely hard. He has a big motor. He can score. He can defend. And he's still learning the game, man. And it's scary how good he could be at the end of the day. And then, like I said, Marquise Custis, man, he's just a dog, man. The kid, he gets it on defense. He can score a little bit. He's getting better at that. But defensively, he's just locked in, and he's committed, and he takes pride in getting stops and slowing down whoever's supposed to be the best guy. He want to shut you down and keep you below your average and frustrate you to no end. And he does a great job at that, man. And we have a couple other kids as well who definitely contributed, whether it was on the scoreboard or defensively doing the intangibles, diving on the floor, bringing energy. I just appreciate everyone for everything that they bring to the table, and I always applaud those guys and try to give them their roses that they deserve for doing the things that, most people would think is beneath them to do.
Sure. Well, again, congratulations on a fine season. State champion the Smithfield Packers are for 2020-2021 in Class 4 boys basketball. Enjoy it. Best wishes to you. And before we let you go, I have to know this. You are going to hook up our guy, Keith, the most loyal Smithfield fan in the world, with a T-shirt that says state champion, right?
Hey, absolutely. I was going to ask you before I got off the air, could I give Keith a shout-out, man? He's definitely the most loyal supporter that I've ever met in any high school. And I appreciate you, Keith, man. We got one for Smithfield, man, something you could talk about for the rest of your life, man. And we're going to try to get back there again so that way you could be present and see it all unfold in front of you.
There you go, Coach. Make sure you send us that selfie with him when you guys can do it masked up or whatever it is. And enjoy it. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. That
is the one and only Theotis Porter, head basketball coach of the state champion Smithfield Packers. And he's got a championship T-shirt coming the way of Keith right here on 757 Saturday Sports Talk. We'll take a timeout. We've gotten a little bit. We'll actually save it for not the next segment, probably the one after that. Andre Twine's coming back with us with Deep Creek head football coach, not head basketball coach, on the program. And we'll do more right here on ESPN Radio 94.1.